Hi, my name is Jaden Nessie, and today I will be interviewing Eric McLean.
Hello.
Do you mind sharing how old you are?
I am 20 years old.
What brings you joy, and what do you like to do for fun?
Well, there's a lot of different answers to that. I mostly like writing. I'm especially into poetry. I also love listening to music. I'm also working on a musical. I like to really create things and try and work together with other people on projects. I'm a little too ambitious sometimes, but I really love to work on things and see how much I can push myself creatively.
Me too. I like writing and all that stuff as well. Tell me about your favorite place and what makes it your favorite place.
Well, there's a lot of great places around that I've been to, but probably the most simple and probably one of the most fun is where I usually go downstairs in the basement to play video games. I got a big TV in my house. It's awesome. It's where I watch, my YouTube. It's where I watch, my movies and play my video games. It's a real comfort spot for me.
If you would feel comfortable, would you please describe your disability in your own words?
Basically, I have a form of cerebral palsy that mostly affects my legs, although I've had a surgery called a selective dorsal rhizotomy. I can't believe I pronounced that. It's basically allowed me to walk. I had it at about 6 years of age, and I've had another surgery called a tendon release, in which just to release some tension so I could walk flatter and better. So I started to walk out at about age 9, and I've been doing pretty solid ever since.
What was it like growing up for you?
Well, I didn't really know anything different in regards to the disability. There was a sense of you physically can't do things. In terms of my peers, I found that they treated me very respectfully, very kindly, but there was very much for your own safety, because we care for you, we're not going to let you do that. And the kids in my grade school, they were really sweet about it too, but there was a sense of, for your own safety, we are not physically going to let you do that. Understandable, but it was like, oh, darn, I can't do that. Some of that has changed in terms of surgery and stuff, but ultimately I'd say things have gotten better, but there's still the occasional moment where it's like, oh, I can't do that. But overall, I'd say socially it was great, but it was the physical realities that were a real challenge.
How do you tackle obstacles you may face? And do you have an example?
Well, there's a lot of obstacles I face in terms of my own life. Like, one of the things I've really been challenged with is, like, tying my shoes. For the longest time, I couldn't do that. So one of my strategies for a problem is, sometimes if you hit, there's a metaphor, and it kind of goes like, sometimes you can punch at a wall all you like, but sometimes you gotta realize that you can go around it. You can try the same method over and over again, and it's just not gonna work for you, even if you do that method well. So then I eventually learned, hey, there's these shoes, they're Velcro. I actually have shoes made, not specifically for me, but like, they work for people like me with disabilities. They're actually designed for old folks to use in a nursing home, but they work very well for me. So one of the things I've tried to learn is, okay, there's some things I can't do some ways, but let's see what I can do in a different way. Find another angle.
What's something you've learned when it comes to having a disability?
One thing I've really learned is that how similar people are. Like I said, a lot of my peers, especially throughout grade school, and high school was a little rougher for making friends, but I found that I wasn't really, it was challenging, but it was like, oh, I'm generally treated well by my teachers, and generally treated well by my peers. There was a sense of, you're just another guy here, and I liked that.
How do you spread awareness and educate others on your disability?
Well, that is a very interesting question. and I'll try to give as interesting an answer as possible. So I have done quite a lot of charity work. I'm a former Easter Seals ambassador. I've done speeches for the Shriners. I recently performed at the Special Olympics. I did O Canada. So I've done things like that. You know, little things. I'm just talking with people. I try and tell people, yeah, I have a disability, but I also have a lot of interests outside of it. I just try and connect with people as much as possible on an emotional level. That's one of the things that I think is really important.
How do you find it making friends, and what are some suggestions you have for people with disabilities?
I think the most difficult part to starting a friendship is getting over that initial hump of small talk. It's always awkward. You want to get past the weather is nice conversations. Everyone wants to get past those, but you need to do those because otherwise it just seems weird, going, hi, how are you? One of the things I say is build things slow. This is just a general piece of friendship advice even for people who don't. Yeah, if people are not going to absolutely tell you the most incredible, amazing things about them until you get through that phase, and getting through that phase can be very monotonous and tedious, but it's important and you gotta get through it socially. It's just one of those social conventions, I guess.
How do you help others who may have similar experiences to you?
Well, I can think of a very specific example from camp. In my cabin this year, I was the only one who could independently walk. And sometimes the counselors at the camp they're great, fantastic. Sometimes they don't hear when someone is yelling for help in the cabin because they're asleep. So I basically volunteered to, hey, you guys can yell for me, and I will get the counselors. And that's what I've basically done. One of the things I try and say is you try and be a team player because, and like I said, the counselors are great, but when you're deep in sleep, and I'm a very light sleeper, I totally understand why they might, and they were totally receptive to it, totally helpful. It was just that, I need to be that guy who is going to be sort of a first responder, I guess.
Yeah.
So I try and just be a team player with people.
That's so cool. What do you wish all businesses, schools, and venues would do to make the world an accessible place for everybody?
Automatic doors are a blessing, and I love them. Okay, this is not just a disabled thing. This is a design thing. If you could have those little handicap buttons that get people in, like whether or not you're disabled, those things are amazing. I love those. Like, having those around, even if it's a little expensive, you will save so much time. It is incredible. I love those. So we need to install more of those.
You heard it here first. How do you make sure you're being your authentic self?
Well, for me, it's a matter of I have a constant, sense of conscience in the back of my head of like, it's constantly judgmental, and I mean that in a positive way of like, no, that's not true. No, try this instead. You gotta hold yourself accountable in a sense. You gotta be not a harsh judge, but a firm and fair judge on yourself. Because there will be times when you slip up, and you have to account for that. And if you have a proper judge and you're orienting yourself in a proper way, not being an absolute, not just beating yourself up. It's a matter of, I understand what I need to do. I understand what my flaws are, and I'm going to try and do my best to account for them. So that's what I try and do, is I try and have something where I'm asking myself, am I being all I can be, essentially?
What's one thing you wish people understood about people living with a disability?
One of the things I say is hold reasonable but high expectations for them. I find that a lot of the people who want to help people with disabilities, there's very much there's a talking down. They don't mean to be the way, but it's like, part of me is like, I'm just a guy, You know, at the end of the day, I'm just a dude. And I find that one of the things I try and say to people is, I will tell you when I need help. If you can help me, that is amazing. Let me try. And let me fail. You know what? I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna screw up. But you're not going to make me better as a person if you solve my problems for me.
What are your hopes and plans for the future, Eric?
Well, I've got quite a few plans. I'm going to Lambton College. It's a wonderful institution. Yeah, I'm planning to absolutely go in there, and I'm going to go in with a positive attitude, hopefully make some friends. I'm going to continue my writing, hoping to one day get published. I'm really just trying to see where my ambition can take me and taking life by the horns and seeing what kind of opportunities I can use to my advantage.
What's one thing you wish people knew about you?
I wish people knew that, like, I can self-advocate, but I can sometimes overestimate myself and like, I can do this, and then it's like, I have this problem where I'm like, okay, I'm insistent on trying to be able to do this. I don't like asking for help very much. Part of me is like, I need people to know, for me, to be able to have, you know, that you can tell me, okay, try this instead. I may be stubborn about it sometimes, but that's ultimately something I think I need to hear when those kind of situations come up. And I think that's a positive way you can do it, of saying, hey, try this instead. This approach is not working. Let's see what else we can do. And that's something I'm going to be very, very difficult with, unfortunately, but I'm working on it.
Is there anything else you would like to share with us?
No, but you have been an absolute joy to work with.
Thank you, Eric. You as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.